Picture stepping into a cave. Most people, even now, stop somewhere near the entrance, close enough to still see daylight behind them, far enough in to feel like they've explored something. Now imagine crawling past that point. Past the last edge of daylight, through a passage so narrow you have to turn sideways, holding a flickering torch that could go out at any second, deeper and deeper into complete, total blackness, hundreds of meters underground. That is exactly where archaeologists keep finding some of the oldest art our species ever made. Not near the entrance, not somewhere convenient, deep in the most dangerous, hardest to reach, permanently pitch black parts of the cave. And the growing evidence suggests our ancestors weren't going that deep despite the darkness. They may have been going there because of what happened to sound once they got there. Start with the basic mystery. These deep chambers make no sense as shelter. Nobody was living down there. It's too far from daylight, too far from food, too dangerous to reach in an emergency. Whatever these spaces were for, it wasn't day-to-day survival. Something else was drawing people hundreds of meters into the earth, carrying fire the entire way in, on purpose, again and again, for thousands of years. Some of the most famous cave paintings on the planet make this even stranger. In Chauvet Cave in southern France, breathtaking paintings of lions, horses, and rhinos, made around 36,000 years ago, sit deep inside a system of chambers, far past where any natural light could ever reach. Whoever painted them had to travel there in darkness, work by the light of a single torch or lamp, and then travel all the way back out. Nobody stumbles into a space like that by accident, and nobody paints a masterpiece there without a reason worth the risk. In 2024, archaeologists studying Manot Cave in northern Israel found something that finally started to answer that question. Deep in the cave, in the darkest, most enclosed part of the entire system, naturally walled off by a ring of tall stalagmites, they found a large rock carved with a deliberate, geometric pattern resembling a turtle shell. It had been placed there on purpose, in a niche, in the one part of the cave a person would never simply wander into by accident. Beside it, trapped inside a nearby stalagmite, they found a ring of ancient wood ash dated to roughly the same time as the carving. Proof that people had carried fire, almost certainly torches, all the way into that remote chamber just to be there. And when the researchers ran acoustic tests in the space, they found something remarkable. The chamber had unusually strong natural acoustics, the kind of resonance that could carry a voice, a chant, a rhythm of clapping, in a way that felt different from an ordinary room. The research team described it as something close to a built-in sound system, sitting inside the earth, completely by accident of geology. This wasn't a random one-off either. Decades earlier, two researchers named Igor Reznikov and Michel Dauvois spent years testing the acoustics of painted caves across France. In cave after cave, they mapped out which spots produced the strongest resonance, the longest echo, the most powerful sound. Then they compared those maps to where the ancient paintings actually were. Again and again, the two maps lined up. The more resonant a spot in the cave, the more likely it was to be covered in paintings. In some caves, faint red dots, seemingly meaningless marks on their own, showed up at the exact points where the sound rang out longest and loudest. As if someone were marking the spot rather than the wall. Now, it's worth being honest here. Not every scientist agrees on how strong this pattern really is. Some later studies, using stricter methods, found the connection between sound and art location was real in some caves, but far less consistent in others. And a few researchers argue the paintings might simply have ended up in memorable, easy-to-find spots for other reasons entirely. The debate over exactly why isn't settled. But what nobody disputes is the deeper, stranger fact underneath it: these ancient painted chambers really do sound unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. And our ancestors kept returning to exactly those spots, over and over, for tens of thousands of years. Picture what it must have actually felt like. crawling on hands and knees through a passage barely wide enough for your shoulders, torchlight throwing wild shadows against wet stone. The sound of your own breathing suddenly huge and strange in your ears. And then the passage opens up, and someone begins to sing, or chant, or strike two stones together, and the sound doesn't just happen. It fills the entire space, wraps around you, seems to come from everywhere at once. In total darkness, with nothing to see, sound may have become the only thing that was truly shared in that room. And that shared moment probably did more than just feel powerful in the instant. Researchers who study these ritual spaces point out that gathering a group in total darkness, dependent on the same flickering torchlight, moving and sounding as one, is an extremely effective way to bond a group of people together. You can't see faces clearly. You can't drift off and ignore what's happening. Everyone in that chamber is having, as close as possible, the exact same experience at the exact same moment. For small bands of humans who depended completely on trusting and cooperating with each other to survive, an experience like that may have been less about art for its own sake, and more about welding a group of individuals into something that could act, hunt, and endure as one. And we never really lost that instinct. Think about why a cathedral is built with soaring stone ceilings that make a choir sound otherworldly. Why a concert hall is engineered, at enormous cost, purely around how sound behaves inside it. Why people still gather around a campfire at night and sing together, or why singing in a stairwell or a shower suddenly feels different, bigger, more alive than singing in an ordinary room. Somewhere very deep in you is the same pull that sent someone crawling into the dark heart of a mountain 35,000 years ago. The pull toward a space that makes sound and connection feel larger than any one person alone. So, the first concert halls our species ever built weren't built at all. They were found, deep underground, by people willing to crawl through total darkness on the chance that something on the other side would be worth it. They carried fire into the earth not to survive the night, but to hear each other differently. To stand together in a space where a single voice could fill the whole world around them. Long before language had words for beauty, or music, or awe, our ancestors had already found the room where all three of those things happened at once. And somewhere inside you, that same pull is still there, waiting for the right dark, resonant room to wake it back up.